You were seeing Craig Kelly shortly after this announcement.
Yeah.
He says you were just being a mate and put your arm around him?
I've been mates with Craig for a long while. I knew Craig before he came into politics. I have an intense interest in small business and their exploitation in many instances by big business, and Craig was on the same page there. And so we used to do a fair bit of work together, and I have been very aware of the pressure Craig's been placed under. And like mates in any business or in any building or any sporting team, when you see one of your mates under the pump, you try to make sure that they're not there all alone.
And you hadn't spoken to him prior to the announcement about his decision to
it was the biggest surprise to me when he made this announcement as anybody else. You didn't have to be Pythagoras to think it might have been on the cards, but if you said you knew that was going to happen today, no, I didn't. If you said, did you suspect it may have happened, I'd say, yeah, I probably did.
Have you had a chat to him about, or you're trying to lure him to the Nats?
I would love him to be in the National Party, but that's really a decision for Craig, and I'm not going to start pushing somebody one direction or the other. That's an absolute decision for them to make. It's also a decision for the executive parties to concur with. I've heard that One Nation have also reached out to him, so I would say this, because I know there'll be a lot of people after this. People go mad. I'll just go back to the room and have to deal with them. But just think of your numbers, fellas. If you don't want a number in the coalition, you prefer it on the crossbench or somewhere else, well, I suppose that's a path you can go down. But I think I've been around this building long enough to say majority 2 is better than a majority of 1, and I think we're now in a position where you'd have to go to the crossbench for basically every piece of ledge. And so, you might get dirty with us, but for suggesting that joining the National Party probably wouldn't be a bad idea, but even if you think about it, it's probably tactically smart. And I think that within the National Party you've got more breadth within the National Party to speak your mind. We can see that in the last week with the discussions that the National Party have led on changing the position on nuclear, on making sure that high efficiency, low carbon emission hilly plants should be part of the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. These things within the National Party, it's always been the culture that we're not as hung up about what you say, as long as you have a cogent argument that's behind it. So
there's room for him there. And have you had conversations to him to say, come on, mate, come on, join the Nats?
I've certainly, of course. But I've certainly said that nothing's a sure thing. You've got to, you've got to want to do it. It's like me saying, well, so can you, Kieran. You can join the Nats. But that's whether Kieran Gilbert decides to do it is a completely different question.
Don't know if they'd let me host the show if I was a member of the Nats, but I do enjoy this and chatting.
And I'm going to go to other stations and say, I asked Kieran Gilbert to join the Nats. True.
I appreciate it. No, it's very kind of you. But so with his considerations now, I mean, you mentioned the arithmetic, and your former Prime Minister, someone you caused a few headaches for in the day. John Howard used to talk about the brutal law of arithmetic in politics. So it really does come down to, do they want a bit more breathing space or not, essentially?
Well, I think that's something that has to be in consideration. And obviously I've had concerns in the past about, in the brutal law of arithmetics, we should have more committee chairs. We should have them in statutory chairs, and I think we should have greater weight in the positions that are given to us in the cabinet. I've said that publicly on the record. But the most brutal law of arithmetic is this: if you lose the vote, in the chamber, that's a bad day in the office. And more to the point, if something else untoward that you didn't know was to happen, there's a possibility that you could lose confidence in the House, and that's the end. That's the end of the government.
And it can be volatile. You obviously would like Craig Kelly in the National Party ranks. Do you think that's a view shared by Michael McCormack?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not here to speak for other people, and I'll never ever speak for my colleagues. They can speak for themselves. But you asked me a question about my position, and I think it's incumbent upon me to be straight with you, which is what I'm trying to do. You
are the chair. Let's just move on to another issue quickly, the job seeker and the mutual obligation. Yeah. You're the chair of the employment committee.
Backbench,
for the backbench. Did the minister, did Michaelia Cash and Minister Ruston engage with you on that?
Yes. I think that probably got a lot more details today in the joint party room than we were aware of before. But maybe that's so it doesn't leak, I suppose. And it's going to be an important piece of legislation.
Do you agree with it? The changes?
Well, yes, I do. I think things have mollified a bit. If we had a surplus budget, I would like to have seen more money. But we don't have a surplus budget. And this is something you've got to say to the Australian people. And it's a hard thing, but it's the truth. We have a record deficit. That's like a profit and loss, record loss. We have a record debt. So the things that you might have wanted to do in the past, you're unable to do now because it's all going on the credit card. And you've got to be careful about how much you put on the credit card. So I welcome the increase. I acknowledge the change in circumstances by reason of COVID. I wish that we hadn't had COVID and we had a surplus budget, because if we had, you possibly would have asked for more, but you deal with the cards differently.
What about the mutual obligation? Is that too tough or
no,
about right?
No, mate, mutual obligation, one of the most annoying things for me, Kieran, is a lot of people aren't unemployed, they're lazy. People who are offered a job that they can do and they decide not to do it because of whatever reason, then you go to work for all of Monday, half of Tuesday. The rest of the Australian people out there, they go to work for all of Monday, half of Tuesday. And what those people are saying when they don't take that job is, I believe you should be working for me. I'm entitled to get your money, and that is not on. Unemployment benefits are there for people who are genuinely unemployed. But if there's a job in an abattoir, picking fruit, cleaning rooms in a motel, and you're able to do it and you choose not to do it, you're not unemployed, you're lazy.
Being a bouncer?
Yeah.
You've done that before in a previous life. Barnaby Joyce, thanks very much. We'll talk to you soon.
You're welcome, Kieran.